Hey y'all, it's Kate. In this video, I'm going to analyze Sheri L. Smith's young adult novel, Orleans, for my Critical Remix project. Orleans is born from the chaos and devastation caused by a series of horrific hurricanes and the appearance of a deadly disease known as Delta fever. What was once known as the Queen of the South has been cut off and forgotten by the outer states. Fen, born and raised in the city that care forgot, must fight against the dangers of Mother Nature and the threat posed by human nature as she risks her life to save her leader's newborn child. My vision for the remix cover of Orleans focuses on the differing physical worlds from which the two prominent characters originate and how, in reality, their worlds may not be that different from one another or even that different from the world of the audience. Sheri L. Smith's Orleans acts as a counter-story by providing a protagonist of color, Fen, who I featured on the front cover. Through the eyes of Fen, readers are able to experience the dystopian world of Orleans and the horror of the extent of mankind's racism. With the appearance of Delta fever, race as we experience it is no longer the dominant social structure and is replaced by a new form of racism that segregates the inhabitants of New Orleans by blood type because of the different values attributed to each type based on its level of susceptibility to the disease. Some of Smith's readers, like myself, may have never been victim to racism and therefore may not be able to fully understand and relate to those that have. By Smith creating a world divided not by the color of your skin, but by the blood in your veins, she is forcing her audience into a state of vulnerability similar to that which is experienced by those targeted by our own system of oppression. Orleans acts as a counter-story by allowing readers to experience an insider's perspective of the effects of this new form of racism, while also encouraging us to reflect on our own system of oppression we oppose today. To start off with, we will first focus on my remix of the front cover of the novel. We as readers are able to go beyond the wall and experience a society and culture assumed to be extinct. Through the perspective of Fen, readers are exposed to the harsh realities of a world divided by blood. Either you're constantly being hunted, or you're deemed worthless because of your high levels of susceptibility in contracting Delta fever. Fen is featured on the front cover, essentially chained to her own blood type. Her blood type being O positive allows for the disease to exist within her, but doesn't have the same effect on her as it does for the other types. This makes Fen valuable, but also makes her a target of blood hunters. Furthermore, the depiction of Fen being held prisoner by her own blood emphasizes how she will never be able to escape the categorization of her into simply a blood type. Therefore, the system only sees value not in the individual, but in the blood pulsing through their veins, and uses it as an excuse to devalue others, dehumanizing every person that lives within the wall. Additionally, Fen is carrying her leader's child, who died during childbirth and entrusted Fen with the future of her baby girl. This child for Fen represents hope, the hope for a better generation not plagued by racism. This child also acts to reinforce the idea of racism in Orleans. For the first 7 days of her life, this child will remain uncontaminated by the Delta fever, placing a high value on her. Along with Fen's bag hangs another empty bag ready for blood, highlighting how we continue to perpetuate the system that oppresses us by passing the same systemic issues down to the next generation that have the potential to survive through that baby girl. What is the most fascinating about this social structure that is developed within the walls of Orleans is that there is no privileged race. You are either being hunted for your blood or you're already infected, and therefore your blood, which denotes your worth, is of no value, meaning you are of no value. That being said, Smith does acknowledge, subtly throughout the novel, the idea of race and racism as the readers understand it, which is represented on the back of the cover of the novel. Smith doesn't directly identify the race of many of her characters, but she does highlight the lack of white people living within the walls. The wall, more than anything, perpetuates our idea of racism defined by the color of our skin, as it becomes the ultimate divide between whites and non-whites. Fen explains the struggles of those most devastated by the storms, poor black and non-white communities. Reminiscent of Katrina, many didn't have the means to evacuate and had no choice but to remain and face a storm. Many didn't have the same advantages of having another place to go, or a car to get there, or even the money to pay for the gas. The back cover depicts some of the privileges which whites are able to enjoy, things that we all take for granted, like a car, technology, access to medicine, and so on. As they live their lives and enjoy these everyday pleasures, the wall and the racism that helped build it become distant memories, and what remains behind it is soon forgotten. I focused on the counterstory of race and racism because it is still an issue that plagues society today, but it is an issue entirely of our own making. Race is a social construct we built and continue to perpetuate. I think it most warrants attention because, as highlighted in Orleans, we will essentially continue to segregate ourselves and perpetuate racism even if the idea of how we understand it takes a new form. Basically, we will always find a way to divide ourselves, if not by skin color, then by some other identifiable feature, and we will continue to other people and justify the hate. It quickly becomes easy to ignore and overlook when it becomes a part of everyday life. However, if we started paying more attention to the effects and practices of racism, we may be able to understand how pervasive it is in our society and how we all interact with racism, either by being a victim of it, by trying to combat it, or by unknowingly, and sadly, sometimes knowingly, reinforcing it. There is no easy answer to racism, but it will require everyone to successfully tear down the walls of racism.